Welcome to the Asking Why podcast. I'm your host, Clint Davis, and today we have a special anniversary edition of the Katrina podcast, the story I've been telling, and I've got 5 or 6 of my buddies who were with me there that are going to come on the podcast, and I'm going to try to get them to tell their versions of the story. Hopefully they listen to the podcast so far, and they'll be able to add to the stories, but we're going to do this live, so I'm about to start letting them in on the Riverside app, and I'll be able to see their faces and be able to let you guys see us. We haven't seen each other in years, so 10 or 15, 20 years since some of us have talked over the years, text back and forth, but many of these people went to Afghanistan with me. They have just been, there in some really heavy times. I will say I don't know what language is going to be used on here. I didn't tell them to keep it PG or anything like that. So we'll see what they do, and we'll see how we talk, and hopefully I don't slip back into it. I was laughing with my wife the other night because I've been talking to these guys the last couple of days trying to get it all mapped out for us to do this episode, and I could feel myself slipping back into wanting to use some serious language quite often. So anyway, I'm going to start letting them in, so enjoy the show. Brad, you there?
Hey, what's up?
Hey, dude.
What's going on?
We both have beards. That's what's changed.
Yeah.
Old and gray, man.
Yeah.
It's so good to see your face, buddy.
Yeah, you too, buddy.
I'm so excited about getting to do this.
Yeah. It's been a long time coming. I didn't make the 20 year.
Yeah, no, I didn't either. You mean for Afghanistan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't either. I wanted to, but I couldn't get time to get off to get there.
Yeah, I couldn't either.
So where are you living?
Martinsburg, West Virginia, like in the panhandle of West Virginia, about an hour from D.C.
Okay. Awesome, man. Well, it's so good to see you. I think everybody else will start rolling in, but we're just going to keep it light. I got some questions I'm going to roll through for us and just kind of go through, let you guys talk. I'll probably mute everybody one at a time so it's not too chaotic. And we'll just let this be a kind of recorded podcast. If something comes up that, I'll tell everybody this again, but if something comes up you want to cut, it's not live, so we can cut whatever and, stitch it together.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, man. Well, so you're just sitting in the car?
Yeah, I coach soccer, and I thought it was 5 o'clock my time, which was actually not. It's
all right.
It's 6 o'clock here, and I start soccer at 6:30.
Okay. Well, we'll take you for as long as we can get you, man.
All right, buddy.
Any thoughts so far on the podcast?
No, it was good, but just thinking back on it, I don't know what rank I was. There's a lot of stuff that I don't even remember. Like I remember glimpses of people's faces. I just don't remember I remember Pratico, I remember Sarver and them being in the area. I just don't remember the interactions with a lot of the people.
Well, yeah. If you remember thinking about the podcast, or thinking about the story so far, the problem is that there were so few of us that we didn't run into each other very often. So it was you go do whatever the little thing is you were doing, and then, you might run into somebody else. And I don't remember who was all actually in the dome with us, or who was who came after and just did cleanup stuff. So I don't have a list. But the guys who are coming on tonight, obviously everybody that was that's on the list was in there. So
yeah, definitely. That's where my mind drifts, is everything was so chaotic and crazy that I just don't remember. I honestly don't remember who we were teamed up with. Honestly,
Corey,
that's me.
What's up, buddy?
Fellas?
You gonna turn your video on or no?
Let's see. I'm sitting in my truck.
Timo's sitting in his truck too. There we go.
So I can have some quiet. I got the kids running around. Hey guys,
what's up, buddy?
So good to see you, man.
Good. Yeah, good to see y'all too, man. I 5 kids, doing the chauffeur thing and running around everybody. So just trying to keep up.
We get it. I just appreciate you guys coming on and being able to talk about it. Okay, here's Sergeant Knight. Here's the leader. Here we go.
There you go. Hey, Clint.
Sergeant Knight, how's it going, man?
Going good, brother. Hey, that's Sergeant Major to you, by the way.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sergeant Major now. My bad. Already getting in trouble. Hot off the presses.
Retired Sergeant Major, that is.
That's crazy. I can't believe they kept promoting you. the only top you got, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
What did it take? 20 years to get to 7, and then 5 years to get to Sergeant Major?
It sure did. That was pretty quick, wasn't it?
It was after it started rolling, huh?
Yeah. Once it started rolling, I was good to go.
That's great, man. We're so thankful for you and proud of you. I know you've heard me and I messaged you before, but dude, you were there for us in some tough times, man. So we're just very, very thankful for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that was some tough times. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely. Well, me and Thibodeau were talking about the Black Hawk mission, and we couldn't figure out which one was which, if there were 2 separate ones or if there was the same one.
Yeah. So there was one Black Hawk mission y'all were on to go to that hospital, and that was very important because they had a hostage situation there, and That's the one that y'all were on.
Okay. We couldn't remember. He remembered a couple different things. I didn't remember the sergeant major being with us, but apparently he was.
No, I actually wasn't. I wasn't with y'all. I think there was somebody else was with y'all that went on that mission because I made sure y'all got assigned to it. But I know when Ted come back, he said, "Man, they made us search every floor. That sucked."
No,
It was not fun.
No, I thought it was Bruyette because I remember Bruyette putting a pistol in somebody's face. But like again,
No, I remember that too. I mean, I remember us kicking the door in and there being doctors and us like, you know, putting the guns on them and then them being like, "What are y'all doing?"
Yeah, that was a Tulane Medical Center that y'all went into.
Yeah, I don't. Again, at that point, remember the main event, but the details to me like all blurred. It was.
Mm-hmm.
We were so tired and worn out that I don't. It's just hard to remember details of.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
well,
very
what do
true.
you remember?
Very
So,
true.
so run me through what I wanted to ask you guys is I'll just run you through some questions and we'll just let people in. Here's a Hot for Health. Who is this? Oh, okay. Of course, Hot for Health. Donna Blair had to have Hot for Health coming on here.
Yeah, that's something else.
Well, it's good to see you. Thanks for coming on. I was telling somebody this week, it's just been great thinking about you guys and just the, you know, how many good times we had and hard times and just how all that shaped, you know, just so much of our life. And then it also feels like a movie that plays that didn't really happen. I don't know if you guys feel like that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Alan, do you have a beard?
Yes, I do. Everybody
oh my gosh, that's
does.
hilarious. That's
That's
so
the
funny.
new thing.
I know.
Yeah,
Well, it took
man.
me. I literally haven't had a beard until the last year and a half of my life, and I finally grew one out and kept it, and you know, because most of us grow them out afterwards. We're tired of shaving,
Right.
so it's hilarious. That
I
we all
was
have one.
curious to see if you still had the famous sideburns, though, to be honest.
Oh yeah, they're all the way down.
It was,
Look
Wait,
back
that
at
was
how many times? Not just at Katrina. How many times is that?
Not just the Katrina. There's several drills.
I want to know if we've ever went to a drill and they haven't called you out for your sideburns.
I don't think so.
I
Probably
did
every single drill.
every drill. Every drill.
Every drill. I didn't follow the rules very well. I apologize.
But I don't know if it's not following, but you was right on the edge.
Yeah, that was the argument, right? I mean, the regs were the earlobe, and they were right there, man.
First Sergeant Hano, you got Elvis in your formation over there, don't you? I said, yeah, I do.
You know who I really wish
Nancy
we'd have on
Hannah.
here? I really wish we'd had Travis West on here. I mean, I don't think he was in the Superdome. He would make this hilarious. All right, so let's get started, and we'll go until you guys need to drop off.
I want to point out one unserious thing before we start this. Me and Griffin were in at ULM together, and when our pagers started going off at midnight, we was about a half a fifth, maybe 3/4 of a fifth in, and we were driving down to hurricane duty and got pulled over by a state trooper, and we drunk. Anyways, so I'm not driving. Anyways, the state trooper gives us a escort to the armory from I think we were in Columbia, and all the way to Pineville. We're lucky we didn't end up in jail. Or we would have missed this too.
Yeah.
That's a great intro to the podcast
Yeah.
for sure.
Wow.
We're leaving that.
That's
We're
awesome.
leaving that in. We're leaving that in. All right, guys. I just want to say it's so good to see your voice, hear your voices, and see your faces. Like, really, like I have been so excited about this since we've been talking this week. And it was funny. I was telling my wife I was calling Prater to leave him a voicemail because he's been complaining for a year that he wanted me to do this podcast, and then now that I'm doing it, he won't respond. And so I went to call him, and I had been talking to all of y'all and texting with you, and I try not. I mean, I don't cuss as much as I used to as I was in the Army. I mean, I still will say some words, but I felt that like. I'm going to say the F word like every 30 words on this voicemail. And I had to like take a breath. I was like, okay, I'm not there anymore, but it's just cool. It's just cool, man, to see you guys and hang out with you guys. But it brings me back to just something like you were saying earlier, Donna, that just all the fun and the laughter. And although that so much of this stuff was terrible and heavy, I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of times where I missed those days of the military because it was so consistent. It was just steady. I knew what I was doing. I knew who I was doing it with. I knew who I could trust and who, for better or worse, who I couldn't. And so, you know, all that to say, 20 years later, I love you all, and I'm very, very thankful for y'all coming on and talking about
Love
this stuff
y'all.
with me.
Yeah, we love y'all. Love y'all too.
Same.
All right, so let's do introductions. I'll start just on my screen. So we'll start with Sergeant Major since he's the highest rank. So Sergeant Major Alan Knight, can you tell us just, you know, a little bit about who you are? We take like 2 minutes, who you are, what rank you were during Katrina, and what was going on.
During Katrina, I was Sergeant First Class at the time, or really 86, but I was in charge of the QRF that was sent to New Orleans at that time. And we went down with basically a platoon size element, which was supposed to be 50 guys, but we didn't end up with quite 50. We ended up with right around 40. Trusted every one of them, and I just want to tell everybody they did a great job. I couldn't have made it without y'all. And I got a lot of stories to talk in the Superdome, but I just couldn't have made it without it. Every one of y'all supporting me to get us going.
Yeah, same here, man. Same here. Is that Prater? Are you on?
I can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me, Prater?
Yeah, I can hear you.
There he is. What's up, dude? All right, so I want to start the podcast real quick. So I want y'all to listen to this, okay? Because I think it'll mean a lot to you. So Lieutenant, I don't know what he ended it. Would y'all know what Lieutenant Byrd ended as?
I believe he's still in. The last that I heard about him, he had moved up north, became like some chemical engineer officer for active duty. And far as I know, he's still in.
Who's
Okay,
that?
Lieutenant Byrd.
Yeah, no, you mean Colonel Byrd?
Okay, he's a colonel now.
Yeah, Colonel David Byrd has retired as a colonel now. He lives in
Wow.
Arizona, and he works for a pharmaceutical company now.
So I want to start the podcast off with what he sent me this week. Can y'all all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So he sent me this week. He said, I listened to all your podcasts. So for people to know, Lieutenant Byrd was one of the first lieutenants that we had at Alpha Company when I was there. He said, I listened to all of your podcasts on Katrina yesterday, and it brought back a flood of memories. My time with Alpha Company was one of the most impactful periods of my life and career, and I just wanted to share my thoughts and my story. In July 2005, I just transferred to the IRR to move states and start grad school. After 9 years, I thought I was done with the Guard, and I spoke to Alan Knight when you guys had arrived at Jackson Barracks and a few times at the Superdome. His tone seemed more ominous as time progressed. Surprise, surprise, right? I had difficulty getting in touch with anyone in the company after the storm hit. It must have been a day or two later that Alan called with loud, staticky background noise to ask if I could somehow get there as soon as possible. The call dropped and I lost all contact afterwards. It took me 3 or 4 days to get my gear together and to call around to figure out if I could make it back and to make the drive. To this day, I regret that, and I should have drove down immediately, and I worried about admin and should have worried about admin stuff later. I don't know if I could have made a difference, and if I couldn't have made a difference, I would have known, and had made a positive difference had I tried. But I still think about this often. For months, I tried to listen as many stories as I could. I know that people just wanted to express their trauma to someone that wasn't in the dome. I often think back to how I would have listened more, provided more support for that group, or just reacted with more caring and understanding. I'm sorry to all of you if you ever felt as if I didn't listen or show more empathy. I wanted to write you this to make sure you understood how impressed I am with that group, and that you should be proud of yourselves, NCOs like you, Sergeant Prater, Sergeant Knight, Sergeant Smoker, everybody that was involved saved lives. Leaders with less patience and empathy could have led to disaster. That regret of not being there for you drove me to leave grad school and eventually go to regular Army for 18 years. It's interesting how it all works out because I took those stories from the Superdome and our shared lessons of aftermath to help train units for emergency preparedness and to help firsthand in other humanitarian relief missions. I'm retired now, but after 27 years of service, I can say that you were the best soldiers and NCOs with whom I ever served. You Alpha Company NCOs became the standard I measured every other Army NCO against, and few ever met that standard. I'm proud to say I served with you, and I'm grateful for what you did for our soldiers, those displaced citizens, and for me. Thank you for sharing your stories.
Okay.
How's that?
Good stuff.
Cool.
That is. That's really good.
So now you know who got David Byrd there.
That's right.
And I think about that. It was just people that cared, right? Like, to me, that was the biggest difference about us is we were a family and we cared about one another. Like, that's what drove our actions.
Absolutely. Yeah, we weren't, most of us had already been to Afghanistan together. So we had already had some kind of bonding over just deployments. Like Cody and I went to high school together.
Yeah, so quick intro. So at the time of Katrina, I know I was an E5. I think I'd been an E5 for about 6 months. I think a lot of us think there was a large group of us young NCOs that went down there. Was there from, I got to the Superdome actually the day after landfall. I made it to the Montreal Convention Center for landfall. Whole 6 months during Hurricane Katrina response, and then it actually opened some doors for me full time. And I actually just retired here about 10 months ago from AGR from Louisiana.
Oh, wow.
So yeah,
That's awesome. What did you retire as?
04 Major.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Donna?
Yeah. Okay.
I was,
No, Donna, not Donald.
Okay.
I
Go ahead,
believe
Blair.
I was private first class. I may have been a specialist. Probably not. But yeah, I was 20. I'd only been in a couple years. I didn't go to Afghanistan with y'all. And yeah, it was like the experience of a lifetime getting thrown into that.
Mm-hmm. All right, Thibodeau. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so I was I was a specialist at the time. Like I said, I was in college at ULM, pulled out. I was living the life and then got pulled out to go to Katrina. And honestly, thinking back on it, when we got the page, I was like, this is gonna be a weekend deal and we're coming back and we'll be partying by Monday. But didn't work out that way. Yeah,
Yep.
I was young, just got back from Afghanistan. After this one, I was like, now I spend more time on active duty than I do not on active duty. And that's when I went full time.
All right, Corey.
Yeah, so I was kind of thinking that before we got on here that I was going to be the youngest out of the group, but I think me and Blair kind of came in at the same time. I joined in 2003 while y'all were deployed. Whenever I got back from basic at AIT and all that, y'all were just getting back. Matter of fact, I was at rear det for a little while. I remember, I think I was a specialist, so I went in as a private first class because of school stuff, ROTC, all that. Yeah, so I kind of brought a little bit of a different perspective because I hadn't really been, had that gel with the group, hadn't really grown up with you guys. So I was a new, fresh out of basic, standing at attention and parade rest for everything, just shiny boots. I can remember one of my first drills with everybody when y'all got back. First Sergeant Hano at the time pulled me out in front. We were in the motor pool and pulled me out in front of formation to display how shiny my boots were. Just crazy.
I'm sure we all love that.
Oh yeah. Which they didn't last that long, being engineers and stuff. But yeah, we were. I was on the group there that we went down for Dennis or whatever, the first one a couple weeks prior to Katrina, and then I was there for Katrina. I remember driving those trucks 45 miles an hour from Alexandria all the way to New Orleans. I mean, it was, but I think Katrina really formed the rest of my career, kind of like what you were talking about, Cody. I eventually went in to work with the Provost Marshal. I got into the training department there, ended up training a lot of SRT members from 2008 forward, and just really formative. I was a LNO for Lincoln Parish for the tornado that came through and tore up all of Ruston and all that.
Oh yeah.
So I was actually LNO. I was like the liaison between the National Guard and the city officials when all that went on for 527. So yeah, just, learning from that experience and being able to apply that to actual, an actual career going forward was just, it was an amazing opportunity. Obviously not at the time, but looking back, it's crazy how much that really did form a lot of who I became going forward.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Sergeant Prater?
Okay. I'll just hearing you guys, kind of makes me, it makes me remember now about Ann and, and what their mindset was and what they were doing at that time. But I always remember the one significant thing. And of course, at that time, so maybe tonight can maybe reflect on, I think I was in E6 then. And I also think that Clint can remind me if I was E6. I think I was.
Yeah, you were in E6 at that time.
Yeah, so thank you. And I'd been in a unit a while, and so I specifically remember getting to New Orleans in a Humvee. Not to pat myself on the back, but I was the first Humvee for the 844th when we drove up. It was kind of one of those moments
27th, because there was no 844th.
Right, yeah, we were just 5. We were Alpha Company.
Well, you got a point there.
Yeah.
But, when we got there, it was kind of like what he was saying earlier. I would be here for the weekend, and it was a start of a
remember
crazy...
I told y'all the back for 3 days operator.
Yeah, 2 days. That's correct. And that didn't turn out well at all. And here we are today.
All right. I want to talk about it when we were bringing the people in. There's two incidents I want to talk about. We've started noticing a lot of stolen goods coming into the Superdome. As the water started rising, we started noticing a lot more stolen goods were coming through the buildings. There was one case where we had a lady that had 25 pairs of shoes. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. She had those shoes. We basically told her if they fit her feet, she could keep. And come to find out, only one pair of those shoes fit her feet. The rest of them were stolen.
Wow.
So what we ended up doing was the kids that were coming into the Superdome with no shoes, no pairs, no nothing, giving them a pair of shoes and where they'd have something at least to have on their feet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah,
people didn't
isn't it
realize that, but
interesting? Yeah, I
that
mean,
was one of
it's
the things that was
interesting.
going on in the Superdome. The other
Absolutely.
thing is, y'all were bringing up about Smoker, and to this day, I still do not forgive myself for doing this, but the crowd was getting really rowdy at the doors outside. They were yelling and screaming. Y'all were having trouble processing people because we had some disruptive folks out there. So my mindset was, I'm shutting the doors. We're done here. They'll either get themselves right or they won't come in, one or the other. And thank y'all for all backing me up on that decision. The only problem was I left poor Smoker out there by himself, not realizing that he was behind the crowd. And I was just like, this is not going to be a good day. But I seen him out there, so we actually got him back in, and the crowd took care of their business. The guy that was disrupting everything, they basically told him either calm down or he had to leave because they were not staying out there any longer. They were ready to come in. They were whipped. They were ready to come into a clean, dry place that at least had partial food and partial water. So I'll never forget that story, though, with him outside. He said, "You left me out there." I said, "I know I did." And I apologize for that.
Oh, man, there were so many mistakes made where we were just trying to figure it out. Me and Thibodeau were talking before y'all came on just how, it's hard to remember who was there because, we only ran into each other afterwards. It seemed like while we were there, like I look back on those pictures that I posted the other day and I saw all, most of your faces in some of the videos and pictures from either National Geographic or the pictures that I posted. And I'm like, man, I know they were there. Prater and Smoker were kind of the main people that I was around most of the time. And we were doing all the security and then I wouldn't run into anybody else for hours. Yeah. Was that y'all's experience as well?
Sometimes all day. Well, it felt like it.
Yeah. Any thoughts to that?
I remember you being gone a lot, Davis. Yeah. But there was, times like when we were for the buses, I remember that going on for days. And I was listening to all the episodes you did. And when you talk about making eye contact with all these people and really like forming this connection with them. And I was doing that and it was just so overwhelming. I remember not being able to cope. And I can't remember if somebody told me to stop talking to them or if I was asking, how do I deal with this? How do I cope with this? And they told me, I'll never forget this. They told me, don't look them in the eyes. And it makes me want to cry thinking about it because I actually tried that for a while, and I couldn't do it. It just felt like
inhuman.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the things I think that's hard for all of us, and knowing every one of you well, like we are caring people, you six, people, I know you and you love people and you're nice and you're kind people. And yet you have to turn all that off to survive, sometimes. And I think for me, that was what was so hard. It's like, yeah, you had to just try to find a way to get through it because you're going through the same thing they're going through.
Right.
Anybody else?
I remember.
Corey, you got something?
Yeah. So
hey, Clint,
Alan.
Just emphasize with her on about the buses and stuff. That was a harsh condition for us to be in at the time because when we initially got there, I don't know if y'all remember this. When we initially got there, they were almost at the door for the Hilton. I mean, they were at the door. The air guard was not handling the situation at all. They were just, whatever was going on was happening. But we got there initially. We were able to push the crowd back. There's some space in there, but we had that zone. And we also had a rapper. I don't know if y'all remember this, but they had a rapper. Famous rapper from New Orleans was also assisting us to get the crowd back. We had him on a PA. And that was probably the toughest time for us. But the reaction time when the shooter came, while we were trying to get people on the buses. I don't know if anybody realized how fast that went, but that shooter was eliminated within 30 seconds. Y'all don't know that because everybody was still on top. There was most of us that were reacting to it, were downstairs, and the state police took care of the situation for us. We didn't have to engage. They did.
Yeah, so that story, Alan, is what I told, and that's good. I'm glad you validated that. So there was a shooter trying to shoot at us from the bottom, and then the police took him out.
Yeah, I remember when they called it, and we had just enough time for us to, because we kind of divided, went to each side of the bridge, and I can remember the thoughts in my head like, oh my God, are we really going to have to do this? Because again, I'm an 18-year-old kid, just out of high school, and I can remember from us moving from the 2 lines that we were at, going to the side of the bridge, I had enough time to click from safe to semi, and I was just and then they called, okay, he was taken care of. I mean, it was quick. It really was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Cody?
and the thing that, and again, Clint, you did such a great job of painting the whole picture. For me, I have these small clips of the whole week, right? So it's hard for me to get them in order. But one of them was the shooter that y'all are talking about. But what I clearly remember was how the crowd went from pushing on the gates, spitting on us, hollering at us. All of a sudden, whenever the guy gets taken out, they're cheering for us.
Mm-hmm.
But then it was like 30 seconds and it was right back to, you know.
Yeah, it was like flipping a switch. Yeah.
It's like a switch. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember getting on the megaphone or the speaker at one point, and I just remember thinking, he's being so logical. Hopefully they can understand this. Like explaining that we're going to get on the buses last. We're going to be here last, and everybody's going to get on before us. You just have to be patient and try to back up and give people space. And, well, I mean, the people in the middle couldn't do that, but it was the ones in the back pushing forward. But, and they would listen for like a little bit, and then it would go right back.
Mm-hmm.
The hardest thing for me in this whole scenario was, I don't know, it was different when we went to Afghanistan. I knew that there was a third world enemy that we were going against. Like, they were the enemy. These are our own people. Like, that's the hardest part for me is like, your mindset is different when you're in your home state and experience this. Your mind's not ready for that. I just came back from partying on when we got caught up, and now I'm here, and I feel like it's a third world country. Like one of the things that I remember the most is even though the roof had blown off the Superdome or whatever, we walked outside and we're like, oh, this ain't bad. We were even contemplating letting these people go home. And then all of a sudden the water comes up and it's above their roof on the car. And I'm like, damn, that changed quick.
Yep.
We were about to put them all back into this.
Yep. And then they were so mad because we wouldn't let them outside because they wanted to leave and they would have died.
Yeah. Exactly.
At that point in time, it was a situation where they didn't feel like we were going to be able to take care of them. So they felt like being on their own was better for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's why they felt like, just let me get out of here. I'm going to take care of myself. They didn't realize that we were there with the intents of doing our best to take care of them, whatever resources, the little resources we had. So it was kind of hard to be in their mindset and have them to kind of understand where we were coming from at the same time. It was one of those chess matches that you never win because, you know, we were trying to survive just as well as they were.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. And we kind of had the same mentality. It's like, how did we, looking back on it, like, how did the Louisiana National Guard allow us to get in this predicament? No food, no water. How are we not prepared?
And just like immediately.
We're the ones that plan these things.
Well,
right.
You know, not to another turn ahead of anybody else, but that goes back. Sergeant Major Knight just said earlier was, I told y'all to pack for 3 days. You know, his intel wasn't good enough to give us the idea that we were going to be there for 30 days or more. So that's where the dilemma came in, was the intel wasn't good enough to give us, you know, information enough to say, look, let's prepare for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Once that third, fourth day goes by, everybody's at that point where I don't have any of this, I don't have any of that, we don't run out of this. Now the civilians are basically saying they don't have nothing. How are they going to take care of us? Man, I'll be better off on the street.
Mm-hmm.
So those two things kind of clashed. Those two things clashed.
Yeah.
Sharon.
Yeah, that was the problem. You're right. That there was that miscommunication. And honestly, that is normally how it goes, right? When you tell people go to the Superdome, there's a shelter. You assume that the government brought in food and water for people to
had
shelter
all those
them.
provisions.
Yep. Corey, you were going to say something?
Yeah, kind of for bring it back, and it actually kind of ties in kind of with what everybody was saying here. When we were letting people into the dome, Clint, you had started your podcast kind of talking about letting people in, and when we were up there at the doors and we're having to search these people, right? And you just don't know what all who might have what and all this other stuff, and man, you're explaining, these thoughts that are going through your mind. If I get stuck by this, or, what am I going to have for that, and I thought you were going to say had the same experience that what I had. Cause it was, tit for tat, every bit of it. We're checking, we're letting people in, we're having to do these searching through bags and all this stuff. Right. And, you ask them, do you have anything that'll stab me or cut me or anything like that? And of course, everybody's, oh, no. I'm going through this one particular lady's bag, right? And everybody was carrying a bunch of stuff, but I'm going through there and I get poked. And just the worst sets in, you're like, oh my goodness, what do I have? What's going on? It's a Walmart bag full of crabs, boiled crabs. And I'm like, you can't make this stuff up, we're literally going to a hurricane party, it was literally people, just like us, they were searching for a place to shelter, hunker down for the storm. It was crazy.
And so the second thing that was really tough for me talking about the whole experience is like, you would see these families grouped up in like pods, like there were sections. And like, there was times I really did not want to go in these bathrooms to make sure they were secure for these kids to go in. And again, I don't have kids or anything like that, but like thinking about sisters and stuff like that. And like, I'm thinking again, in our home state, and in this Superdome, like the bathrooms don't work, but these people were going in this dark room, not knowing what's in there. And we're having to go in there. You can't hardly stand the smell. Like the smell, I still smell it today sometimes, just like get a whiff of it to where like, you just can't imagine living in that day after day after day, and there's nowhere to go. Like,
yeah,
that's the bad part. You can't get out of
using the bathrooms. It was that bad. I remember when I first saw how bad it was. I went in there and I was thinking it's probably bad, but you can still squat over the mess. And you couldn't even, there wasn't it like, so they were going outside of the bathroom after that, after it got that bad.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't
when the water had started coming up and we were moved, because I think we were down in one of the locker rooms or something starting out. We were at a low level, and as the water started rising, we had to move up, obviously, because the water's rising. And we ended up sleeping in a hallway, one of the big ramp, hallways up there one night. And I can remember talking with Todd Prince. He's actually my cousin on my wife's side. I get choked up talking about it too, because, I was, again, an 18-year-old kid, fresh out of basic, hadn't been deployed, nothing like that. And I was asking him, hey man, you think we're gonna die, or are they gonna overrun us? Are we gonna make it out of this thing? Just not knowing and just being in that limbo, man. And the filth that we were laying next to, there was human feces on the floors next to where we were sleeping, and trash everywhere, as you can imagine. But it just burned in my mind. It's like I can see it still today. It's just crazy.
So I got a funny Sergeant Major Knight story on that one.
All right.
So I remember this clear as day. So we're all trying to make the decisions: weapons, no weapons; weapons, no weapons. Like
you're talking about the night where the water was flooding and the power was going to go out.
The water's coming up and about to take over So the first thing that we did was turned all our vehicles around to where they were facing outward to be able to. They said, "We're getting the hell out of here. If they overrun, we're gone." But then it's like weapons, no weapons, no weapons. Sergeant First Class Night at that time. F that, we getting these weapons. I don't care what they tell you. Go get them weapons. We're going to protect ourselves. We're going to protect these people. I forget whatever, but he was going off. You know how Sergeant Knight did. He was running from back and forth, back and forth. We getting them damn weapons. We getting them the weapons. And we went and got them. They told us to bring them back. We got them again, and then we kept them that time. But I was like, dang.
Yeah,
they were totally against us.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Sergeant Knight was going to fight that to the end.
Sergeant Prater, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we had gotten the weapons at one point, and they didn't issue us ammunition. So we had the weapons, and we had no ammo.
That's correct. Yeah.
Because
I haven't thought about that. You're so right.
I was put on guard duty of a pile of MREs, and it was me by myself. I'm standing there with a weapon, with no magazine, and I'm supposed to guard this pile of MREs, and I'm losing my mind. I'm like, What, how am I supposed to fight them off if they try to attack me?
Just let
Yep.
them have them. Just let them have them.
Right?
Bro, yeah,
What you gonna do?
that's funny. I forgot about that detail.
Yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
we did get weapons for a while without magazines, and then they finally gave us ammo once the water was flooding. That is what.
So back to the hallway story.
Okay.
Now I want to finish that up because there was a lot going on the hallway that people didn't know about. Hano would come and talk to me and said, "Hey, look, when the power goes out, I want y'all to run out the front door and just get out." And that was not my intent or my plan. My plan was we were going back upstairs where Jeff Woods was at, and we were going in that room with the ammo, the tear gas, and everything, and we were going to defend that room till there was nobody left. So that was her decision, was to try to push us down there. And Ebony Carter was the I guess the
She was the
lieutenant. She
commander
really
at the
wasn't a
time.
lieutenant.
Yep, she was lieutenant at the time, but had to bump up to commander for that.
Yeah.
time.
She was the commander.
Yeah,
at the
we all
time.
know why.
Yeah, so me and her did get into a quite a bit of an argument over those weapons, but at the end of the day, I won.
Well, you know what? Looking at it from her point of view, at that point in time, she's the commander. She's solely responsible. And, and I was trying to see it from your point of view at the same time tonight, hey, let's protect ourselves to the end because we're outnumbered. She was looking at it, okay, at the end of the day, I'm the commander. I have to be accountable for everything that happens to each and every one of these soldiers and these civilians. So it was so many tug of wars in this situation while we were down there, to where there was never really a right answer.
No.
Because of what the outcome may be.
No,
And
The
I could have
place-
got behind either one too.
And the
Yep.
place,
The only thing I couldn't get behind was leaving the civilians.
Yeah, right.
I couldn't either.
Because but I get it. It had already been so rough for 3 days, and things were getting so crazy with lights on that if all the lights went out and we're in the middle of 30,000 people, they were already so angry. Because you guys remember, the radio was saying that the engineers had basically blown the dams. I think that was one of the things that was killing us, is that they were listening to FM radio or AM radio, and so we were basically the bad guys,
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the other things too I'd like to bring up for those listening that maybe not be familiar with what we're all familiar with, and that is when we deployed to the Superdome for this hurricane, for whatever reason, we lost a significant amount of critical leadership before we ever left the door. We went with, I think it was 2 E7s that we deployed with. We had a second lieutenant acting commander. We had the 3 AGR guys and a bunch of inexperienced E5s that were looking at the Sergeant Praters, the Sergeant Knights, those guys that, it was just a lot of people making decisions that they should not have been responsible to make. And I'll be honest with you, when the dust settles, I think a lot of people stepped up in this team that we had and, kind of made some stuff happen.
Yeah, man,
Absolutely.
that's so true.
100%.
I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, it was crazy. You guys were there, and you guys who messaged me, I was like, oh, these are the people that I remember, because just Sergeant Knight. I'll just say that. I remember, you had to step up in positions in leadership where people were too burned out and too overwhelmed and too paralyzed to function. And so, you had to step up and look, as the dust settles, like you said, Cody, I have no judgment for anybody. None of us were prepared for it. So if I was able to do anything good, it was by God's grace and the relationships we had with each other. I think leadership
Amen.
is a very isolating, space. So we at least had each other to kind of fall back on, where maybe some of the isolated leaders who were there, they had no support, no other, leadership. And just what we were looking at and what we were doing, we all come to the military with our own past traumas and our own baggage, and seeing and hearing that stuff, you just can't say, oh, well, this person was stronger. That's just not the truth.
Yeah, well, so, and nothing that I say on here that I have said is to condemn anybody or to make them feel like they didn't respond. It's just but it's the
what
effect.
happened.
And it's the effects that being in this situation, it's how it affects you at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because we didn't have a whole lot of people, because it's just taxing on you emotionally through this time, because like you said, we didn't hardly see each other half the time. So I'll be wandering around this Superdome for 6 hours without seeing any leadership, and am I doing the right thing? I guess I am. Nobody,
Yeah.
you were just pretty much in
Right.
charge of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember
Yeah.
being set I can remember being set on a post, me and one other person, like at the corner of the top of a stairwell, and we're just sitting watching this hallway, just trying to. I really don't know what we were doing. We were pretty much just standing there. We were uniformed. People were kind of coming and going as, up and down the early on, when we had first kind of got everybody in, kind of wading through the storm. That really, that was it. You really didn't have.
Go ahead.
I wanted to say, me and Clint were together a lot of times, and I remember many instances where people wanted to go outside and smoke, and they were trying to do it respectfully. You go, you got 5 minutes, you go, you got 6 minutes. And there was another time me and Clint was walking the corridor. We seen a couple of guys breaking into the Coke machine, and I was right on the verge of doing something stupid. And there was also other instances where we were manning the water stations, and all those times me and Clint were together. He was very calm. I can't say I was calm internally, but externally I wanted to chop somebody's head off, because it was at that point where you disrespectful son of a gun. I cannot believe. And I want to applaud Clint for his calmness do those situations, because there were a bunch of times where he and I were together and he was real mellow.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. It doesn't feel mellow, that's for sure.
I'd like to tell a story about Prater if I could.
Yeah, please.
So I got down to the Superdome again. For some reason, I was on the trail party. Now, I was working orders at the range, so I know I was available. But for some reason, I came down with the trail party with Sergeant Nichols.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to the Superdome. After landfall, it's really not looking that bad. The storm was terrible, don't get me wrong, but the water hadn't come up yet. People are starting to arrive at the Superdome, and I get put on the line with Sergeant Prater. He was running the line. I forget who all was with us. It was happening pretty quick. And I just remember a black gentleman came up, and we were trying to give everybody some water, and we were being fair across the board. And I don't remember who it was, but they give him the bottle of water, and he asked for some more. And, it's like, look, you get one bottle. We have a limited supply. And I remember the gentleman saying, and he kind of pointed at Prater and said, I knew I should have went to Sergeant. I knew I should have went to him. And I just remember, Prater saying, hey, everybody behind this line's in green, and I'm going to back these guys up. Get your bottle of water and go inside. And I just always thought, what a great leadership example, because it was a lot of people looking at us. And anyway, just, shout out to you, Sergeant Prater. I always thought very highly of you, working for you on that line.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Yeah, man, that was one thing. I think I talked about it at some point, but just, for y'all listening, Sergeant Prater is a black guy. And so, being an African-American and being in that situation, it was such a weird, calling you Uncle Tom, yelling at you, saying stuff, and also then trying to butter you up as if they were going to get something passed. So can you speak to that a little bit, Prater, on how, because I love that too. I remember you saying the same thing, like we're all in green and black, and so we're going to have each other's back. And that was something that was really important.
It was one particular instance. It was in reference to a New Orleans policeman. A guy wanted to smoke, and so we gave him a chance to smoke. He stays out there past his time. I go out there. Of course, he's black. I go out there and I say, "Sir, we're gonna need you to move inside so someone else can smoke." And he give me the old, "We're supposed to be tight." I'm black, you're black, and I basically broke it down to him. Told him, said, "Look, man, this is one of these situations where everyone wants to come out here and smoke. You're not an exception to the rule because of me and you and what we look like." And I remember the New Orleans policeman walks out there and he tells the guy, he said, "Hey, you got a problem with him?" And I was like, "Well, no, he just feels like he deserves some favoritism because of our." He said, "Yeah, that's the way they are down here." And the policeman was black. He said, and he told the guy in so many explicit language that if you don't get yourself back in that building, you're going to leave here with just me. And the guy turned around immediately and went back inside. So that policeman was on the same sheet of music I was. It was not none of this favoritism stuff because of our color or whatever. We were there all in green and black and camouflage, and we were all there for the same job. And that's where I faced everything that I approached when we were there.
Mm-hmm. It's good, man. I think that's one thing that people don't understand who haven't served, even police officers and firefighters, is there's just a different level in the military where, so much of that stuff goes out the window. And in our climate today in 2025, like we'll probably all be canceled for talking about it. But, it's like, everybody's worked up about these things and, gender and color. And it's like all these things are important and we should talk about them. But when you're in the middle of survival, like, human is what comes across, right? Like it doesn't matter whatever else is going on. And so I do think that's a gift for all of us that we've got to experience with each other, is like in the worst parts of history. No, actually you can be united. You don't have to be divided. It just depends on what you're going to be divided over.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Thoughts?
Sleep. That was the other issue right there. So the schedule was crazy, and I apologize for that, but that's what we had worked out with the other union.
I don't remember none of that.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, we were sleeping.
I literally do not remember laying down.
I don't remember sleeping. That is crazy.
So the way the sleep schedule worked out was we were basically on 16-hour shifts, and then we would come off shift. We'd have an hour just to kind of cool down, relax a little bit, get all that emotion out of us, and then we'd get 4 hours of sleep. And then it was my job after 4 hours to wake all y'all up to get you ready for the next shift. Let me tell y'all, it was hard to do.
I bet, man. I semi-remember that as you bring it up. I do semi-remember being like, okay, y'all lay down for like 2 hours and being so tired that you like can't go to sleep. And then right when your eyes close, like, you're coming over and be like, hey guys, I'm so sorry, but y'all gotta get your butts back up.
There's like 2 times that I can remember there being any sleep involved. One was the hallway when we were, also having a discussion whether we were, once the generators go out, what was going to happen. But it was a time where we were underneath the parking garage, and, you talk about, you had a little time to sleep. So we had cots amongst our army trucks, the Humvees and stuff that would fit under there, and the old Blazers where we were charging phones and whatnot. And then also on the top layer of the parking garage, like 1 or maybe 2 levels above where we were, is where the helicopter deck was. So they had helicopters landing and taking off. So, I mean, maybe we tried to get some sleep, but it was just crazy.
It was bad.
I mean, isn't that amazing, though, that for that many days on that little sleep, like, it just seems crazy. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I've made the whole thing up.
Look.
This weekend, it was really validating because it was jogging my memory about so much stuff that we went through.
Absolutely. The flood of emotions that had come through. Just listening to that and remembering, and I would tell Bethany, look, I'm about, and you were about to say something, and I would say it, and then you would say it verbatim. I mean, it was just word for word, and she was like, what in the world? That's crazy. And I was like, I'm telling you, all this stuff really happened.
Yeah.
Did you ever bring up about Acadian ambulance and what they did to us? Did y'all ever bring that up in any podcast?
No, remind me.
Okay, so Acadian ambulance,
I'll come back to you, Donna.
It was day 3, and they decided that they weren't going to be there anymore. So they left us their ambulances and all their medical supplies for the King Center next door. They left the supplies. They left the military, whatever, the doctors, we had stuff over there. They left all the supplies. But they actually did evacuate. People don't realize that. Acadian ambulance abandoned the city.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some cops did that also.
Yeah, there were a lot of people that left.
Yeah, that was our medical. So basically our medical ended up being military, and we had some nurses and some nurses that were working at the the elderly homes and stuff like that. And that was our medical. That was it. People don't realize that. And there was about 4,000 people probably next door in the medical facility at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Donna, you were going to say something?
Before I was thinking about, do y'all remember the first shower? It was in the
I just did that. So y'all haven't heard today's episode. So I did an episode before y'all came on, but yeah, okay. I did an episode of when we get to the Alero Center and got our first shower, but go ahead and you tell it. I want to hear it.
Okay. Well, no, so you didn't have one in the parking garage?
I mean, I poured water bottles over my head.
Yeah. Well, with the water bottle.
You remember the people went and got the little camping showers. Is that what you're talking
That's
about,
right.
Blair?
Well, Walmart donated a bunch of stuff. I remember that was like a godsend, like bunches of water, whatever we needed, shower curtains, and then they put this makeshift just square up, and we could all just take showers in private and with water bottles, and it didn't even take that many. My hair was matted to my head It was incredible.
Yeah, I do remember that now. I did not remember that. So I remember pouring water on myself in the parking garage and regretting how gross my clothes were, man. That was the thing that, like, I don't know if y'all heard that part, but like when Prater came and got me and I had to put my clothes back on, that about broke me.
I remember taking the clothes off and the pants would just about stand up by themselves. It was crazy.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I was trying to think, Cody. I think we were in the parking garage. So the buses were loaded on day 6. And then the next day, day 7, the buses were loaded, or day 5 technically. And then the buses were loaded 2 days. So we did that whole day by ourselves. And then we got relief. We went and tried to lay down. The next day, they continued to try to move people out on the buses, and planes came in. We stayed there. That's the day we did the Black Hawk mission. And then I think we stayed one more day to rest, and then we left to go to Lara. So I think we were only like technically in the parking garage 2 nights.
2 nights.
Yeah.
Yeah, and remember I had to check everybody's feet too.
Well, yeah, because it was just disgusting. And the
bottom
of the garage.
being in the parking garage from that debate when everybody was debating whether we should just pack up and leave, and my platoon at least was like, well, we can't leave our armory here, like Sergeant McDowell, and so we decided to go to the parking garage.
Yeah, I think a group of y'all had to move over there. That's so good to know. See, like I said, I only know my story.
Yeah, I think Blair and I were in the same platoon under McDowell, and I'm almost positive our group had went to the parking garage right before the bus mission.
Okay.
Yeah, because
we did. We were there.
Garage to the line.
Yeah, because when we came off the bus mission, I remember packing that water over there and walking into the garage and there being stuff set up. So obviously people had already moved that day. That day was just so long for me because I didn't take a break. And I mean, that's not bragging. It's just what happened because of how they were reacting to me in the gate. And I just felt like I couldn't leave. But I think you guys were trading off like every 8 hours. We started at 6 a.m. And I just remember that SRT guy coming in and acting like a hero. Not SRT guy, maybe it's Oklahoma National Guard. Them just coming in and like acting like they were there to save the day. And I was just
I absolutely remember them saying, "Can you run water to our guys?"
You remember that?
I was not as gracious as you were.
Oh, I was not gracious. I was just so tired that
like
the only thing I could do was do it or punch him in the face.
The audacity.
Bro. Yeah. Okay. So I want to touch on this because I haven't touched on it. Do you guys remember, or maybe better, I'll let y'all go and then I'll wrap up with that. But so what else? Any other key kind of stories off the podcast that you wanted to talk about?
Kind of going along with what we just talked about with the transferring people over from the dome to the little center there next door, the arena. I remember either one of the shifts or whatever, there was several different, they tried several different ways to move people to get them through. First, they were like, women and children, and then they kind of scratched that, and then they went families, and then we started having a backlog on the side, and I was actually pulled to guard one of the doors, and they had another little fenced in because they were trying to funnel them through this one particular door. So I was standing next to the door, guarding the door, and they're changing these things. Well, we end up having, I don't know, probably 20, 25 people in this little waiting area waiting for family members as they're calling people. And I can remember standing there and I'm just taking it all in. And this lady stands right next to me and just starts peeing right there next to me. I mean, just, you don't know how to process that, I mean, crazy, and then I can remember getting relieved from that. And we were supposed to go and bed down, but there was a mission to drive dialysis patients they had like a makeshift hospital down at the bottom, and water was kind of starting to recede. And this may be kind of merged some of the days,
yeah,
but
I get it.
And I remember getting ready to go lay down. We were just coming off of standing up there for 8 hours, 10 hours, however long it was. We're supposed to go lay down, and then they're like, hey, we need, 8 people or whatever to come drive these people to go from the dome to I-10 so that they can airlift. It was dialysis patients that were getting, they were on the last leg. They were dying and all kind of craziness. So we're loading them in these deuce and a halves, and they come up and they're like, all right, look, you're going from here to there. You follow the truck in front of you. You don't stop for anybody, all this. And I can remember that was my first, getting out of the dome since everything was going on. I can remember, just like you said, it looked like an ocean out there, just water as far as you can see. And then there was still tons of people out there wading through the waters, coming out of little convenience stores, people trying to run up to the truck and grab, I know I keep saying this and I sound like a broken record, but I mean, I'm an 18-year-old kid that just got out of basic that knows, hey, follow orders. Really, really messed up situation we were in.
Yeah.
But kind of on the back end of that, I didn't realize until I was medically discharged in 2019. So toward the end of my military career, I was trying to get my uniform together, and I found out that I was actually awarded. I think it was the Louisiana Purple Cross or Cross of Merit.
Cross of Merit.
Yeah, it was in my award panel thing, and a buddy of mine was helping me put it together. He was like, dude, like, this is like a life-saving, this is like a major award. I was like, dude, the only thing I could think is maybe was during Katrina when we were driving them, to I-10, but it was crazy.
It was for the Superdome. Paul McGowan put all that together and everything. Everybody don't realize that, but Paul asked me, he says, Alan, what we need to do? I said, put everybody in for Cross of Merit.
Yeah, I can't believe we all got that. It's crazy.
That because I lost mine in a house fire, and I was like, I've got a Cross of Merit. He should have one too, by the way. And he didn't believe me. He was like, you must be thinking of something else. You must be thinking of this, or I don't know. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure it's the Cross of Merit.
Going back to what Corey was just saying about the first time leaving the Superdome, I remember Sergeant Knight at that time come to me and he says, hey, I need you and some guys to leave here and go over to and relieve SRT because they are guarding the area where the buses are going to come in and pick up the people from the nursing homes. I was in Corey's mindset of following orders. Sergeant Knight was my platoon sergeant, and I'm going to do what he said. So we get in these trucks. We get in this one truck. He brings us all over there to that area. And there's probably about 3 other trucks there, covered, cargo trucks or whatever, parked off to the side. Across the street, there's probably hundreds of civilians that knows that these buses are coming.
Mm-hmm.
And
I was with you on this mission.
You sure was. They knew that these buses were coming, so they felt like, we're going to get on those buses. I don't care about no old people or whatever the case. I think that's the mindset they had. But we get over there and we get this real short briefing, this down and dirty briefing on how things are going to go. And we were just kind of out there. And I'll never forget, bless his soul, Darrell Williams. Everybody knows Big D.
Big D, yep.
Yeah.
I went to Big D and I whispered in his ear in some shape, form, or fashion. I said, you see that truck over there? I said, you go check that truck and you make sure it starts and runs. And I say, when I give you the go ahead, I say, if it starts, you crank it, you let it run forever. But that is going to be our getaway truck when things go bad over here. Whenever D went over there, he cranked that truck up and he sat there and he sat there and he sat there. And I'm trying to recollect how this went. But I remember the buses getting there.
Yep.
Can you take it from there?
Yeah. I remember I think I told this on the podcast, but they there was only so many people that could fit on it, and they were all jumping on the buses. And at some point we were like, hey, the Superdome's down there. And we just all ran and jumped on the back of the trucks and had to take off because they were just coming like a horde of zombies at us.
Exactly.
Now keep in mind for the people that's listening, on all this, this was before GPS, handheld GPS. Nobody, we didn't have smartphones, all this other stuff. I was trying to explain this to my kids the other day. They're 15 and 14, and they could not grasp the concept that you mean you had to do all. How did you know which way to go and all? I mean, it was a different time, man. It was a different.
We figured it out.
That's it.
Barely.
Yeah.
Down there.
No keys. Yeah.
Any particular moments that were kind of, some of you said the whole thing kind of shaped you for your life, but anything out of it that has really just stuck with you, for better or worse, that you heard me say that you experienced, or just something that maybe I missed that you're like, man, this happened and I'll never forget this, and this is how it impacted.
Well, there was one thing I've always said, and I'm going to say that part. There's one thing I've always said, that the Superdome at that point in time, even though it's a sports arena and so on and so forth, with the combination of Hurricane Katrina, all of the people in needy situations, the military in a crossfire between protect the civilians and protect themselves, the crime that was going on in the Superdome, the crime that was going on outside the Superdome. My vision, and this has stuck with me forever, my vision of that Superdome was the Superdome was hell, okay? And you can maybe kind of picture this. I even drew it a few times. Like the hole in the roof we were like in hell waiting on the decision whether or not we would get pulled out by Satan. And when the rooftop came off, when it broke open the top, this big hand reaches down in there and starts pulling people out. And the hand was Katrina. But it's kind of hard for me to tell you what my thought process is on this. But that Superdome to me was a big bowl full of people, and that was hell. Mm-hmm. And inside there was survival mode. It was every man for himself. Everybody that was mature enough to hold their responsibility for what they were supposed to do did that. And then there were some people that got to the point where they just didn't care. And I 100% applaud each and every one of you guys and girls that's on here and many, many more that did what they were supposed to do in the midst of all of the chaos.
Mm-hmm. It's good.
Good analogy.
I know personally for me, going forward, it really kind of, and it's kind of neat because I hadn't really talked a lot about all of this stuff and the situation, except for like close friends and my kids and stuff like that. But looking back at, what all went down there and seeing what the leadership was going through and backing out and seeing the bigger picture of the miscommunication and things, I think that's kind of maybe subconsciously is what kind of guided me through my career path. When I got into law enforcement, training was really near and dear to my heart. I talk a lot about the light bulb moment whenever you have somebody that's struggling with something that just can't seem to get it. It's, I don't know, God gave me this gift to be able to communicate and break through barriers. And it's like a light bulb that comes on. And man, that is such a prized, just all amazing feeling that I get when I'm able to help people with those things. And throughout my career, I can see how the hardship and the things that we went through, the lack of communication, the lack of documentation, all of those things, that's kind of become what I am in training. I document everything. I help people get prepared for the worst case scenarios that could possibly happen. And I've done that for the last 20 years. And all I can think is it was God's hand, being able to take a situation as horrible, horrific, and whatever other adjective that you can come up with for Katrina and turn that to give glory to God in the person that I became it's just mind blowing to me, and to see how all of that was able to transpire over the last 20 years. I'm telling you, yesterday, I was a roller coaster of emotions. I cried, I laughed, I got angry. I was just trying to process everything that was going on. It was it's amazing.
It's good, man. Thank you so much for sharing that. Cody, you got anything?
Yeah. Two quick things. The first was, again, little snapshots as the thing went through. And one that's always stuck with me was the complete feeling of helplessness. We all have a servant heart that's in the Guard. Like, you can't have a servant heart and be in the Guard. It just doesn't work, right? So we always are doing the little extra. We're staying up a little later than we're supposed to, helping everybody out, battle buddies, the people that's in the dome, whatever. And I remember we were before the bus line. I believe we were pulling security around the outside of the Superdome. We'd kind of letting everybody out. And we were in battle buddy groups. And I remember a lady come running up to me, and she's like, "You've got to help her. You've got to help her. You've got to help her." And, at first it's kind of, like, "What are you talking about? What, water, what are we doing?" And we run over, and it's, worst case scenario in the water, all the way down at the bottom. And, you're at that point of, what do you do? And you feel helpless. There's nothing, not helpless as in no one can help you, but like, there's nothing I can do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a hard pill to swallow whenever you have a can-do attitude. We're trying to stay positive. You're lifting each other up. You're going through this thing. Then all of a sudden, this isn't fixable.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that took a pretty hard toll on me. And then the last thing with the leadership, I brought it up earlier, and Clint, you and I texted back and forth a little bit. I was bitter about the leadership not coming. And I struggle with that a little bit. Here we are, we're supposed to be doing this thing. They're supposed to have our back. They're supposed to be protecting us, right? And we came off of Katrina orders somewhere around March of 2006. To give everybody some perspective, that's August 2005 to March 2006, we were on duty. And I went full time in 2007. I went to OCS. Like, it impacted me so much to where it's like, I'm going to be a leader. That soldiers deserve,
It's awesome.
Hopefully I fulfilled that, but those two things always stuck with me.
That's great.
You have. You've done a great job, bro.
Absolutely.
Blair.
Yeah, the helplessness, that feeling, that was overwhelming. I remember that being a big part of, even like before getting on the line was the most traumatic for me.
The buses?
The buses, waiting on the buses was really traumatic, like thinking back and listening to the episodes on that, the lock and load, that feeling like what's going to happen next. I remember having faith, though, and I didn't even have a relationship with Christ at this point, but I remember just having faith that it wouldn't go any further than that, that if we lock and load, that would, scare them enough and nothing would happen. But yeah, that was the worst. But like even before that, the helplessness of so many people coming up to you. I need my grandmother, and she lives at this address, and I just started writing down addresses, and I knew I could not help these people.
Mm-hmm.
I would bring it to someone above me, and they would just be like, yeah, we're not going to be able to use that. There's way too much going on. The people that are actually out there rescuing, they're not getting any addresses from a, private E3.
Yep. Well, they weren't getting them from an E6 or an E10 or anybody else either. I mean, I think that was the problem, right? Like,
yeah,
you just felt so, debilitated on such a level that people really can't fathom.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just like one of those scenarios, right? It's like every second. That's the thing, rewriting it. People have called me and said, man, or text me and said, I'm listening to episode 3. I don't know if I can listen to the rest of it. I'm like, oh, it just gets worse. And as I was writing it, I'm like, holy, like, this is just every second of every day, all the whole time.
Yep. My wife, when
like,
we were listening, my wife was like, gee whiz. I guess the next day it kind of got a little better. And I was like, nope, hang on to your seat, darling, because it took a nosedive every day.
Yeah, one of my therapists called me today, and she was like, I'm listening to it, and I'm thinking, we are in the Superdome thing, and this is how it's going to go. And then it changes, and then it changes. And then you're on a Black Hawk, trying to, go get people under fire. She's like, what am I listening to? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know if that's real. Like, I literally questioned myself on if I actually got on that Black Hawk or not. I was glad Thibodeau said we did.
Yeah, y'all did.
It's just wild to, that. And for me now, like being a therapist, this is what I work with people all the time on is, we experience these traumas and they change the way you think and the way you feel. And then people, unfortunately, this is one of the things I did this for, guys, is that then I watch like the National Geographic documentary, or I watch, I'm interested in what the Netflix documentary is going to say on the 27th, but it's like, it invalidates a lot of what I know was true, right? It's like this social gaslight. It's like, yeah, this happened, but like, none of that stuff happened. That was all just like rumors. And it's like, no, like I remember. Yeah.
Deaths, did they say?
I have to go back to my notes on what the total of it was. But like everything else, it's so minimized.
Yeah.
And what's so interesting is right before all of this, my daughter is 18. And I guess TikTok has been talking a lot about this because she was so interested recently. And God always has a way of synchronizing things. But, she kept asking me all these questions right before I saw your podcast. And so I started talking about this recently, too. I mean, I guess it is close to the anniversary, so people are talking about. She says all of the bad stuff and all of those terrible things that were going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the National Geographic thing said it was like 1,300 or something like that. I was like, I guarantee you I saw 1,300 between the dome and just the little trips that I did between the convention center and I-10. I mean, there were people everywhere. that were dead.
Mhm.
I mean, it was crazy. Yeah.
Yep.
Validating the one that got thrown off the second balcony. Man, whenever I was going through my PTSD rating stuff, and I was talking to the doctor and kind of explaining some of this stuff. After I told him that, he was like, "Look, I don't want to hear about your deployment or none of this stuff." Just after the Katrina stuff, because I mean, it was that bad, and I can remember questioning myself. Did that really happen? Did they really throw somebody? And it blows my mind.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about religion. So when I brought all y'all down there, everybody, most of the platoon we had, it came from the Bible Belt. So y'all, everybody believed in Christ and accepted Christ. Y'all were put in a situation that y'all didn't understand because it was like God had abandoned all of us while we were there in the Superdome. Brady, you brought that up, and y'all were very distraught about that because, I mean, there was people that came up to me and questioned, about God at that point in time. I said, no. I said, the Lord is with us. That's why we're all still alive right now. So the day we moved back to the Hilario Center, they were more worried about medical for y'all and clothes for y'all. I wasn't worried about all that. You know what I was worried about? Where are the chaplains? Because I want the chaplains to be with our guys like now. I don't need them next week. I don't need them tomorrow. I need them now. And somebody over there at the Hilario Center actually listened to me, and they got the chaplains to everybody so we could talk about this. Because
remember they got us in a circle and we all sat around and tried to have this conversation. Obviously, knowing now what I know about trauma, we were in the middle of it. There was no processing. But it was a good attempt at at least us having a conversation about it. I do remember doing that. So
we had to have that conversation because it was the impact. They've had troops that Cody, you got post-traumatic stress disorder pretty bad from it. We've had other soldiers that have called me and they had really got it bad. I mean, I've got troops that got on drugs and all kinds of stuff at the Superdome, and they're off of them now, thank God. But it was from that experience. It was so traumatic. But you've taken kids from the Bible Belt, and now you put them in a situation where everybody needs are so damn needy down there, and now you've got to deal with that. And it was just like we got to the point where I felt like we were herding cattle. We were just trying to get the cattle out of the Superdome, and that's just how I got to feel. The families were very important to me, but I didn't know the families were going to be 50 people to a family or 25 people to a family. And I was like, well, we need to keep the families together. So the demographics changed after day 3. That's when we started getting a lot of gang members in there. So the people who got on the buses first was the gang members. And I had a discussion with a lot of the families. I told them to stay back and they would go to better places than getting on that bus directly right now and going to Houston. Since then, I've actually had family members call me on my phone, my personal phone, and say, thanks for making us stay because we ended up in San Antonio, or we ended up in Atlanta, we ended up in Oklahoma City, and we've all started new lives up there, Alan, and it's been great. And they just appreciated us not pushing them out right off with the gang members. Because I don't know if y'all realize this, but when the first group of buses left, they had Lake Charles. They robbed the store. They stole 3 cars. Nobody wanted nothing to do with the buses. And so they got to Houston. They got to the Superdome in Houston. And then the chaos started in Houston, where they had to deal with them. That affected me a lot for a long time, knowing that I was able to at least help some families out. God was looking out for those families. And God told me, basically directed me not to let those families on the buses until those gang members got on the buses. And I kind of did that. I worked it that way.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, I think all of us on here would say that, which is really cool. I didn't know, I haven't talked to most of you guys in a long time, so I don't know where anybody's faith is, and it's really cool that this is what I wrote about today was just Beauty from Ashes. Was the 7th part was really just saying to people that, man, whatever you go through, whatever seems like the worst thing on earth, God can use it for your good, and it looks like everybody on this call that decided to call in is doing well. And although we all carry wounds and scars, there was also that benefited us in our life, and that you had success out of. I mean, Knight, you're a sergeant major. Cody, you're retiring after 27 years. Is that what you said?
25.
Yeah, as a major. 25. Yeah, major. I mean, Prater, what'd you get out as? E7?
7.
I mean, it's just awesome. And Corey, you were what?
6 when I retired, and then now working at the VA police, helping with veterans. You know, I love being around them.
Yeah, man. Donna, any testimony to that with God in your life other than having kids? And
Up here, and I've actually stayed home with the boys since they were born, and I've worked some, but there was an accident in our family last year, and that's been a huge thing, and that's brought me closer to Christ. I witnessed miracles, and but yeah, since then, back then, I got out as an E5 when I moved to Kentucky, and just lived a simple life, honestly.
yeah, well, it's amazing. Well, dude, I don't want to keep you guys forever. I could talk to you all for hours and hours and hours, but I just hope that me telling this story continues to impact you guys and impact the people that are listening to it. I hope that more comes out of it. You know, I always say, like, I don't do marketing. I don't like push things. I just kind of put stuff out, and hopefully whatever, God does with it, does with it. And it's the same thing with this. Like, I have no agenda of our own documentary. I'm not trying to fight anybody, but I felt like after 20 years, like I've only talked about this a few times and talked about it in therapy, and most of the responses have been, I've heard, people go, I've heard none of that. And so I was like, man, who else is going to tell it if I don't? And so I didn't expect the good stuff like this to come out of it, that I get to see y'all's faces and hear your voices after all these years. But I'm really, really thankful that you did it and you took the time to be with me. If you guys want to talk more offline or, come on one-on-one, like, we can talk about it. I'm going to continue to do kind of the next 4 or 5 months. So Cody, you talked about being there till March. It might be cool for you to come on and us to talk about some of the cleanup stuff. So just send me a message, any of you, if you want to do a one-on-one, maybe 30-minute episode about a very specific thing that we could dive into afterwards, because we've got another 4 or 5 months. And even though the Superdome was the worst part that I really wanted to tell, I think hearing about like what it was like to clean up, pull security, clear streets, get shot at in Humvees, all the things that happened afterwards, I think people need to hear and would be really interesting to talk about. Because again, it's such a crazy time in history, because 2 years later, everything changes with a smartphone, and all of this stuff would have been, everybody would have known it, seen it, heard it, tweeted about.
Yeah. Very well documented.
And so it's like the last thing in U.S. history that happened, and almost the worst thing in U.S. history to happen, that was just completely left untold. And then when it is being told now, it's being told with, in the best way, maybe rose-colored glasses.
Yeah.
To say it nice.
I think the other thing that I'd like to hear you guys talk about, maybe not want to end on negative, but it's like, I remember being so frustrated when they were like, there was pictures of the airborne coming in, and they're like, they saved New Orleans and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, I just felt so forgotten.
Yeah.
Y'all remember that?
Yep,
exactly.
Absolutely.
And then we had to supply a truck for damn Honore to go down the city to where he could parade up down the city like he was the godsend, because they had no high water rescue vehicles, period, with them. Not a single one.
Well,
hey, I had a quick question.
Sure.
I know we had talked about after the Dome, we had gone to Ilario, and I remember the Ilario Center, but I thought we had moved to the convention center for a while, or was that
Montreal
the
convention?
Ilario?
Yeah, that was after. So we
okay. So now that I'm talking about it, it was kind of around Thanksgiving time frame, I think, because we did a big Thanksgiving deal down there.
Yeah, because we had to do the security in New Orleans East at that point in time. Yeah. We got moved to there.
I remember, and God bless his soul, Freeman. I remember we had a mission. It was in the dead of night, and it had to have been later, because I think there was a captain or something that had gotten kind of out of control, and they had detained him, and they needed some people to drive him back to Beauregard. And myself and Freeman got picked on there. I mean, we were kind of bigger guys, and we had law enforcement background, stuff like that. And they gave us a Humvee, and it was already, I don't know, 7, 8 o'clock at night. And they gave us this Humvee, and I'm the lowest ranking, obviously. So that, you're going to drive. I'm like, okay.
Totally remember that.
Do you remember? Yeah.
I remember. So, I remember that too.
I drove. I remember getting.
Freeman wasn't going to let it live down.
No. I got to Baton Rouge and was running out of gas or a diesel. So I had to, I paid for diesel, finally, I don't know, somewhere on 49, I'm tapping everybody I can't look at. I can't stay awake no more. Of course, Humvee's doing 50 miles an hour. So it turned into like a 5-6 hour trip, and they are just sawing logs, and everybody in that Humvee was sleeping. I'm pulling over on the side of the road, doing jumping jacks, trying to stay awake and just get there. We finally get in, and we pull up at Beauregard, and Freeman goes, hey, I'll take over. I'll start driving now. I'm like, bro, we here already. It was crazy.
Yeah, rest in peace, Freeman, man. I miss that
Yep.
dude.
Love Freeman.
Yeah, so I was figuring that out today with Sergeant Rachel. We went to the Alero Center and stayed there for a good little chunk because we were pulling security. And then after we got done pulling the security stuff, a lot of us wanted to go back because we had just missed the fall quarter for tech or wherever school we were in semester. And they ended up just kind of ignoring us. And so we stayed there. And then after we did like hospitals, we did neighborhoods, we did, and I'm going to tell a bunch of these stories. We did like security at like the checkpoints for the interstate. And then after we did all this kind of policing, then they're like, "Oh yeah, go get your trucks, and y'all are gonna go clean up.
Yeah, we need y'all to clean up
chainsaws and all that kind of stuff."
Yep,
that was the most frustrating part. Was that
bouncing back and forth between running fueling missions with Todd Prince and then also
I remember him having the fuel truck. Yep,
running, doing the graders and scrape. There was like a foot of this sludge, oil, mud that we had to clear roadways so that insurance adjusters could get in and start doing, assessing the damage kind of stuff. And I can remember seeing cars on top of houses, complete houses that were just going. But yeah, I'd definitely love to come back at some point and talk about that stuff.
That'd be great.
Yeah, for sure.
That'd be awesome.
And then even after that, I don't know if a lot of people realize this or not, but the same group we're talking about, we end up going to Camp Beauregard and then building all the infrastructure for everybody that worked at Jackson Barracks to move to Camp Beauregard. It was literally the mission that never ended.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was an extended mission.
I was on for
right
over a
after
year.
that.
And remember we had Reed to come in too, so we had to work all the way from Lake Charles all the way up to Shreveport with security also, and clearing roads and everything.
Yep. Yeah, you're right, Cody. That's the thing that people don't realize, and that's what I was telling somebody today. There's a lot of people with the stories of the 4 to 6 months of deployment after. But for our group, for us, like 50, at least the 200 people that were in the Dome and the 50 of us that were from Alpha Company or less, we did all that I just told for 7 episodes, and then we had to go do all that.
Exactly.
So it's like, put you in the prime, the worst situation imaginable, be in the worst human, just crap and puke and bile and sickness and trauma, and then pretend like it didn't happen for everybody else who's walking around with you the next 4 or 5 or 6 months complaining and, doing the deployment and acting tired. We never got a break. There was never a transition.
I tell you, it was, we were like this wet towel. We were being squeezed and squeezed and squeezed until, there was always had to be one more drop of water in that towel. Let's wring them one more time. And the only way that you can deal with something like that is that, they thought we were the best.
Yeah.
And they thought we had no end to our best. So everything that came up, A Company, and you guys know this, and if you don't know it by now, or don't realize it by now, A Company was the cream of the crop. And I'm just going to put it out there.
I appreciate you saying that, man.
Everything imaginable.
Yeah, I mean, even when we went to Afghanistan, they split us up amongst everybody.
Yeah.
They did that on purpose because they wanted they sprinkled us out because they needed the best everywhere.
Right.
Yep. Well, praise God for it, man. Well, I'm going to let you guys go. Love you guys. Let me pray for us real quick. God, thank you for this time. Thank you for this group of men. Thank you for us surviving and that you turned this ash into beauty for our lives. We hope that this goes out to glorify you. And it's in your name we pray. Amen.